सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज.
The miseries of material existence and the most hopeless conditions of life is the best possible opportunity to turn to God.
Barerupa Bhakti presents The Gift of Desperation, a Bhakti recovery podcast. This is a 12-step based Bhakti-oriented space. Here we share our experience, strength, and hope in the spirit of recovery from addictions and associated behaviors. Welcome. Hello. Well, I would love to introduce a very special guest we have today. His name is Radhikesh. He actually is a medical doctor who is, fourth generation astrologer, Vedic astrologer. Are you third, fourth generation, or?
Fourth, perhaps more, as far as I can remember. Fourth, at least.
From a whole lineage of Vedic astrology. And Radhikesh has an amazing story. Well, we will get into that story in another episode, but right now, this episode, we're going to be focusing on astrology, Vedic astrology, in the lens of addiction and how this kind of stuff can affect us and how it can help us. He is my personal astrologist, and I trust him. Not almost everything he has said till now has been spot on. And I'm really pleased to have him. And actually, you are our first guest for 2024.
Very excited.
Yeah, so this is the perfect time to talk about this year, and especially, what people, especially people who are affected by addictions and associated behaviors, what it looks like for us and what we can expect and how we can, use astrology to help us as a tool. So welcome.
Of course. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so grateful to be able to speak to you and your audience about this subject. I think the first thing is I want to clear up for people what astrology actually is, because people may have different, ideas, of like maybe an old woman with a witch hat looking into a crystal ball or something like that, or these type of things. So let's clear up, first of all, what astrology is and how incredibly beneficial it can be for everyone's life. And we'll talk about it specifically in terms of addictions and, the difficulties we go through. So astrology is a science. It's a Vedic science. So it's from the time of the Vedas, which means it has a spiritual basis, but it's scientific, and scientific means it has rules and laws and is reproducible, just like any other sciences. And Vedic means it's based in a deeper knowledge and understanding of things, that each of us is an eternal soul who is on a journey of growth and evolution, our own spiritual path. And it helps us understand the karmas that are associated with the path, things that we call like the modes of nature, how nature affects us, how these subtle energies that are flowing through the universe affect each and every one of us, almost on a minute by minute, day by day basis. And we can understand and recognize those through astrology. So think of it this way: at the moment that you're born, okay, if you look up from the earth, where all the stars and the planets are located at that moment, a chart is created, like it's called a birth chart, an exact moment of what the sky looks like at that time. And that is an indication of the karma that we will be dealing with in our lifetime, the different predispositions we may have, the good times, the bad times. And these can be looked at in incredible detail, and we can really analyze, the things that are going to happen very, very specifically in each person's life. So astrology is not, kind of a strange voodoo type thing. It's a very focused, serious science, scientific with rules, with books, with reproducibility, but the foundation of it is an understanding of our deeper spiritual nature. So astrology is in service to every person and their desire and aspiration to understand their own spiritual nature.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. And you know what I also find really amazing about the science of and the art, actually, because there's also an art, because I think there's probably, just like a lot of science, there's a lot of room also for not interpretation or speculation, but there's a lot of room for people of experience. The more you experience, am I right about this, that you can say, okay, this is how it was aligned, and you know, other people are born in this alignment, perhaps, but not
Right.
necessarily. Yeah, it's not your.
Exactly. That is
Yes.
exactly right. There's definitely an artistic or a subtle side to astrology. It's not a hard science like, chemistry or physics, but there's definitely a subtlety to it that requires some understanding and how to deal with each person and help them,
Yes.
to get through it. Because astrology, I never want anybody to walk away from an astrological reading and not be fully empowered that, okay, now I have these tools with me and there's so much I can do. You should never walk away from an astrology reading saying, okay, this is my life, this is the way it's going to be. Because it's not like that. What it means is astrology is not written in stone. Okay, it's giving us some guidelines that push us in a certain direction. But then it gives us a choice when we get to a certain point. That's why it's so important to look at your astrological chart, because certain times come, certain challenges come, certain influences come into our life. And if we're in a weaker period of our life, say we're going through a heavy Rahu influence, or there's a Scorpio energy going on, or something like that, or Saturn is predominant, or there's some bad planetary transits causing depression and stress and all of these things, that pushes us more towards, becoming addicted or being around the wrong type of people or this type of thing. So when we're in those type of situations, or we can see, okay, look, you're going to go through a period like this coming up in about 3 months, be very careful. What that does, it gives us kind of a preview of what the future looks like, and it allows us to kind of strengthen ourselves or prepare ourselves, because in any situation we have a choice. So we have some degree of free will, because astrology is not that, no, we don't have any free will. You have some degree of free will, and
Sure.
our free will is in how we respond to the situations that come to us. Because we're in a situation that pushes us towards addiction, doesn't mean that we have to make that choice. We have that free will, and it's much easier when we have the vision, when we have the knowledge, the light of knowledge that helps us understand that, okay, this situation is coming up to me, or karmically I'm predisposed to this, then we have the ability to wisely make the choice to say, no, I'm not going to do this. But it becomes difficult. The analogy I like to use, there's two analogies I use, but one is if you have two people who are walking by a bar, okay, and one has never had a drink in their life, never been interested, their karma's just not pushing them in that direction. They could walk into that bar, sit down, eat some pretzels, watch a game, and walk out and never be bothered.
Right.
And say the other one who is walking with them is someone who had a 20-year history of drinking alcohol, very heavy, and they just stopped, a month ago. They should walk by that bar, run past that bar as fast as they can, and not, even take that
Yeah.
chance. So our karmas are different. And if someone, and you can see this in the astrological chart, if they're predisposed to those type of things, they have to be even more cautious with staying away from that kind of stuff. And that's
And
where
this
it's really
is,
beneficial.
yeah, and this is where it's really tied in with the 12 steps, because, if you want to, I would guarantee you, I don't know if you remember my chart off the bat right now, but if you would see, you would probably see that I am completely predisposed to addictions in my chart.
Sure.
And so in the 12-step program, we say we have the disease of addiction, which means exactly what you were saying. We don't hang around in bars because we know what's going to happen. So it's the same thing. So if it's like admitting that we are powerless over certain things and that our lives have become unmanageable, but we're not helpless. This means once we understand this fully and we have surrendered to that fact, we have, like you said, some degree of free will. So it ties in great.
We have, and people can understand that free will at the mental level. Okay, I can use my mind. I can, try to look at these things and try to overcome them. But then they can look at it at a deeper level, which is the
Yes.
astrologic, the karmic level, and they can see, okay, why this is happening. Why am I predisposed? And why am I predisposed at certain times or around certain people? What are those
Right.
relationships that are causing that? So all of that makes really helps us see what the problem is and then what we can do about it.
Yeah, and that's such an important
So,
thing. So go ahead. What were you saying?
Of course. I was going to say that this is where I'm going to pull up your chart if you like,
Oh,
and
okay. Yeah, sure.
we can
No
see where
worries.
that is. Where we can see where the biggest risk for ourselves is, because people go through different periods in their life where it's like more more of a risk, more of a difficulty. And if you can look at your chart and you're okay, I'm, depressed. I have a heavy Rahu energy. Jupiter is not strong in my chart. Mercury is causing me to not think clearly. So any of these things that we see, number one, we recognize they're there. And number two, we can do things to minimize those influences in our life. So, it's not like the karma we have that you're always stuck with that. There are things you can do to help it. So there's a lot of different ways that astrology can help people. Number one, to understand themselves, understand the relationships around them, because in your astrological chart, you can see your parents, your siblings, the environment you grew up in, all of those type of things, which certainly predispose us to, certain actions later on.
Sure.
And the other nice thing it does is that if we're going through it, it also shows the best time for us to overcome it. We go through a strong, Jupiter transit, it'll be like, okay, during this time, you have the strength to overcome this addiction much more easily. So if people have, tried overcoming their addictions 3, 4, 5 times and they're not able to do it, well, you can look and say, look, this time you're going to be able to do it because these planets are influencing you. If you do these particular things, it'll help you. One thing that's so important to recognize is that all of these planetary influences that we see, we talk about Jupiter, we talk about Saturn, we talk about Venus, and this may blow people's mind a little bit, but all of these planets, though they have a physical form, they also have a subtle spiritual form. And that subtle form, they are here to help you. If you read back into the ancient Vedic scriptures, you'll hear about Shani and Brihaspati and Shukracharya and all of these names that you may be a little familiar with. But all of these energies are there all of these beings are there to help you in your spiritual journey. They're not just here in our scriptures or in old books. No, they're here for each and every person that's listening out there to help you on your spiritual journey. The path of divinity, the path of this universe is to help each and every person in the most kind and merciful way to take that journey to become fully empowered, fully strong, and completely powerful and spiritually conscious. But this is the most beautiful thing to recognize, no matter where we are. If we're just listening to this podcast, and we're still drinking heavily and we're struggling and we're depressed, these influences, these beings are here to help you. If you're someone who's overcoming this and slowly on the journey, well, they're here to help you. Every single one of us is, we're covered to some degree by all the conditionings and the things we've suffered in our life. But every energy of the universe, if you're willing to take advantage of them, is here to help you become fully spiritually conscious and realized and live a happy and blissful life. And this is just a very incredible thing to recognize for each and every one of us.
So powerful. It's really powerful. And, I think, when for myself as a struggling, in the beginning, struggling with the addiction issues and everything that comes with it, and the depression issues and all of that stuff. For me, picking a spiritual path was the only way. There wasn't anything else for me out there. So first about the surrender, and second about the faith, and third about giving my will and my life over to that process. And anything, including our Vedic, our Vedic astrology and the power it can give us, anything that helps us on that way is welcomed. And for me, the more mature I get into my sobriety and into my Krishna consciousness, and the more I grow into all of this, the more room I have for more tools. And I think it's wonderful. So it was very powerful. Also speaking with you, I remember like the one thing I take with me, there were a couple of things you told me, and one of them is like, be careful of the people you hang around with, Jiva, because what is weak? My Venus? What was it? No, my Venus is strong. My Saturn is weak. So I listen to other people. I'm
Saturn is weak.
influenced by other
Yes.
people's. Yeah. So I'm influenced. So I have to be careful not hanging around with people who are going to, who are going to, baiting, I don't even know the word in English, who are going to really, confirm my
The
own
people who,
insecurities about
yeah,
myself.
exactly. You want me to talk about, is it okay if we talk about your chart a little bit on here?
Sure. Absolutely. No worries. If it helps
A
others,
little bit.
yes. Yes.
So, you have Saturn and Mars a little bit weak. So when those planets are a little bit weak, number one, you're influenced by others. Number two, Saturn brings its own karma into our life that we have to deal with. And Mars doesn't allow us to be at our fullest strength that we need to be confident in our own energies and skills and abilities. And when the moon is in Cancer, the influence of others is so very important. So it's like a fire that's starting to grow. If you get positive influence, positive energy, you're around the right people, you get spiritual association, you can reach the sky. Okay, you can achieve everything. At the same
That's
time,
amazing.
if you get the opposite, with which comes through addictions, bad association,
Mm.
not being spiritually focused, or not, living just within the confines of our own mind, which is disturbing us. That
Oh my
brings us
God.
completely the opposite. And yeah,
Yeah.
and it extinguishes that fire. And that's every single person out there who's been
Yeah.
through struggles. So I'm talking to every single one of you out there who's been through struggles, who's been through difficulties, whether those are related to addiction and all the things that come with it, financial losses, loss of our family members, legal problems, health
Right.
related problems, that, our family becoming, disowning us having one time the perfect life and then everything going away, or we're in the middle of an addiction and nobody knows it. Everybody looks at us and says, oh wow, this person's life is perfect and we're struggling. The
Yeah.
depression and the anxiety and all of the things that come along with it, it's all there. It can all be seen astrologically, and you can be helped, at a very deep way. But absolutely, in the end, whatever spiritual path you follow, and certainly when I say spirituality, I'm talking about each individual's personal relationship with the divine, however you define that.
Right.
That journey can be
So,
helped, and that
so
journey is
important.
going to be so important. That's going to be the foundation of your, uh, you know, evolution and rebirth into a very powerful person who can take on this world and go forth very strongly. And this is just one more tool you have to try to overcome this. So use it in the best possible way to help yourselves become, overcome these things and recognize why they're happening. And then, try to move on as best as possible in that. The wonderful thing about astrology is that we can see where these negative influences are, why you became this way. Okay. And that way you can prevent those things from the future. And a lot of times when I see charts of people who've gone through heavy addictions, one of the biggest things is the association they keep, the people they've been around. They're just predisposed to being around the wrong kind of people or being heavily influenced by certain, Rahu is one of these energies. It's called the north
Right.
node of the moon that just push people to just do more, or where somebody else has one drink, you're going to have 20, And very interestingly, I'm also a medical doctor, so I do talk about the medical side of things sometimes, is that a lot of times there's certain enzymes in the body that predispose to people becoming alcoholic and things like that, especially when it runs in families. And you can see those subtleties in the astrological chart where,
Is it in there
you
for
know,
me? Is it in there? Is it in there? I don't remember we talking
uh,
about this at all.
we did not talk about this part of it. It's in there. It's in there.
Okay.
But what it shows two things very interestingly. It's in there, but at the same time, there's a positive influence of Rahu that gives you the strength and ability to overcome those things. Okay.
Oh,
So there's
fantastic.
both. Both of those energies are there. So, you have this Ketu energy that started right when you became a teenager, right at 13, that pushed in a certain direction. But Rahu at the same time gave you some strength to overcome difficulties, especially by being around the right kind of people and this kind of thing. So yes, both things are there, and we
Wow.
always have to look at and make those choices and be like, okay, what direction am I going to take my life? And especially if somebody out there, they know that this is there. They look at their chart and they're like, okay, this is where my life is going. I need to be really careful of the people I associate with, the things I read, the things I, look at on the computer, the people who are my best friends, where my spiritual life is going, where my mind is going, all of that we need to be careful with. And when I say association, it's not just, our friends, it's what we put into our body, the things that we eat, the things that we put into our mind, the environment that we live in, what we do for fun. Are we going to go for a walk in nature in a very kind of, peaceful, holistic, wholesome environment? Or are we going to go and, party at a club where everybody is drinking? That also has an effect on our mind and our subtle energies and all of these things. So all of that makes a difference.
So you're writing, I know you're writing a book. I know you're writing 2 books or a few books, or what's with that? Do you want to talk about that now, or should we save that?
No, we can talk about it now. Yes, absolutely. I'm writing, I finished one that's in final editing right now, uh, which is a book on astrology. So I'm reading a 2-volume series. The second one is ready too, but it's not out yet. Uh, After the first one, the second one will come out quite quickly. So it's a 2-volume set on understanding the principles of astrology and how they apply into your life. And then I'm writing a book about the subject we'll talk about next time, which is my entire journey and how we, face the challenges of life in the most positive way that allows us to kind of grow and become successful through them. This world, there's always going to be challenges. There are always going to be things that happen. Our choice, again, is how we respond to those. If we have a higher level of consciousness and understanding of our relationship with the universe, our relationship with divinity, our relationship with God. Okay. If we
Yeah.
can understand that to some degree, then we understand all the things that happen in our life. The good and the bad are simply meant to take us to a higher level of understanding, a higher level of understanding what? Our relationship with eternity, our relationship with infinity, our relationship with not just God, but with every living being in the entire universe, every human being, every plant, every animal, every energy that's in the universe. We're all related because the same energy flows through all of us. And once we start to understand that a little bit, our life can become completely transformed through the ups and downs that do happen in our life. So yes, I would happy to talk about that, but I will have some books coming out related to that. The first one, hopefully within they're telling me within a couple of months, and I will hold them to that and hope it works out. May take a little bit longer, but
So,
that's
so if anyone wants
certainly
to
one thing.
follow, oh, I'm sorry. If someone wants to follow up on that, how can we direct them to get that book?
Best way is to, if you follow me on Instagram, which is Radhikesh Das on Instagram, you could always message me on there, and I'm happy to get that book to you. It will be on Amazon at some point, but that's not happened yet. But the best way is just to reach out to me, and then through my website, which is radhikeshdas.com. If you
Okay.
just Google Radhikesh Das astrology, I'm the only one on there. So that's the best way for
Fantastic. I'll
people
put
to
that
get
in
a
the show
hold
notes.
of me. Yeah, and be in touch with those things. But it's just for many people, because astrology readings can be very specific. It's not just um, you know oh, I see the energy is flowing in this way. No, it's not. It's very specific. You can look at a
Yeah.
chart and you can tell people, when their appendix was removed, when they had a miscarriage, when they're getting divorced, when their addictions and difficulties started. You can see very specifically all of those things.
Yes, and
So for
I
many,
must testify to that. Every single thing that you said was right. You said in 19 this, you
okay,
did this, and did this happen, and it was all right. It's not fishing. It's in the charts. It's
yeah,
science.
we can actually. I tell this very interesting story. I had. This is how specific it can be, and I helped find 3 cases in which somebody had a family member was missing. I was able to find
Wow.
them through astrology. So I'll tell one recent one where a family called me up and they said, "Our daughter is missing. We can't find her." And this was 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and she'd gone missing like around 8 or 9 in the morning. So it's been a lot of hours. She said, "We called the police. They can't find her. They have no idea what to do." Uh, so I said, "Okay, no problem. Let's look at this astrologically." And believe it or not, this happens more commonly than you would imagine. Uh, so I said, let's ask some questions. The first question we looked at is she safe? And that question came up very strongly. Yes, this girl is safe. And the second question is like, did she leave by her own free will? So I looked at it and I was able to ascertain she left by her own free will, and she left with like it shows Venus, like a romantic relationship, like a boyfriend or something like that. So we were able to
Okay.
determine that she left, she ran off with her boyfriend, but she's going to be okay. So, and once we gave that information to the police, they were able to, locate this person, the boyfriend, and find the girl. So, so this is one. Uh, I had one that somebody contacted me from Boston and said, "My father is in India and he's gone missing. We
Oh,
can't find him. Do you have any idea?" And this lady was probably in her 40s. Her father's probably in his 70s or 80s. And so looking at his chart, I was able to be like, and when I read it off to her, it didn't make sense to me what I was saying. And I said, "He's at his mother's house." Uh, and I said, "I don't know what that means, because he's probably in his late 70s or 80s, so his mother's probably not alive anymore." And she said, "Oh my God, thank you for telling me that. There's a maternal ancestral home in our village, and he must be
hmm.
there. That's the only place." And they, contacted over there, and sure enough, he was there.
Wow.
You know, he'd gotten in some big argument and just ran off from the family, this kind of thing. So you can be very specific. You can find amazing, things about your own life. And one thing I tell
Can you
everybody
help me
with
find my mind? I've lost it somewhere. Sorry.
So this is how people can really benefit, you know, from a reading. And what it does for many people, it's their first tangible proof of the presence of divinity in their life. There's if anybody's read Hamlet, Act 2, Scene 2, there's Polonius is speaking and he says, "Though this be madness, yet there be method in it.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
and that, right?
Beautiful.
You remember that?
Yes.
And
Yes, I
so,
do.
and in the modern day, that's changed to, there's a method to the madness. So this is what it shows. It looks like our life is just crazy. We're flowing in the wind. And, all these things are going on. It's just nuts. Why is this happening in my life? But there's a method to it. There's a rationality to it. There's an understanding, karmically, why all these things happen in our life, or why we make the choices we make, or why we hang around with the people that we do, or why my parents are like this, or why is everybody else's life look so great and mine sucks. There's a
Mm,
rationality, a deeper spiritual understanding to why these things are happening. So it's important that once you get some idea of this, to dive into that, because it can be quite life transforming. And it has been for a lot of people. People walk away from readings fully empowered to, to take this journey of the rest of their life in a more deep, meaningful, and conscious way, because they're finally able to recognize, okay, I tangibly see and understand the presence of the
mm.
divinity in my life. I understand that the universe is helping me go in a certain direction that will only benefit me. But we have to be, even if we're suffering or we're going at the, down at the bottom in our addictions and things like that, this is the one sliver that, of light that can be like, okay, now let me go in the proper direction, one step at a time. And,
Right.
it allows people to really become transformed. So, the other nice quote from Hamlet, like that I like to use, is there is more in heaven and earth, Horatio, than is dreamt of in your philosophy. That's another famous quote that,
I don't know that one.
especially when we're addicted or we're suffering, our entire life philosophy is, let me get my next drink, let me get my next hit, let me just get more of
Yeah.
this, and I'll
Let me
be
buy
fine.
this or buy
That's
that or get a better
Yeah,
car, a better house, a better family,
exactly.
better education, better job. Yeah.
Exactly. All of those things are there. But when we zoom out a little bit, we look a little deeper, we realize there's a whole, there's a deeper philosophy, there's a deeper reality that's around all of us, that's just waiting for us to turn our eyes toward it a little bit, turn our mind toward it a little bit, and this entire beautiful, subtle universe will open up and allow you to just dive in and be immersed in that. And that's what awaits all of us when we just take one step in that direction.
And I think something really that people should know is that you're not just speaking, you're practicing what you preach, because I know your story. And
Yes,
I think it's one of the most powerful stories. It's quite amazing. I'm very fascinated with your story, and I can't wait to do that episode with you. I'm going to nail you to that whenever you commit to it. If
absolutely, absolutely.
I'm leaving for
You
India on
know,
the 12th, let's do it before that, please.
we can do that. Absolutely, we can do that. That's not a problem. Uh,
Okay, great.
when all of this first happened, I was very hesitant to share all the challenges that I've been through over the years. But I share it with a few people, and every single person I spoke to said, you have to bring this story because it will help so many other people. Uh,
Yes,
and so, because of that, I've been much more open with sharing it. And because we all go through difficulties, we all go through challenges, you know, related to so many aspects of our life. And if my story can be, helpful to
of
one
years.
person out there,
Yes,
I am happy to share the journey. These
that's
are
wonderful.
uh, stories of growth, stories of going through the fire and becoming transformed. And so I'm very actually excited to share that. And we'll definitely do that in the next few days. Happy to do it.
Great. Do you have an astrologer, or do you do your own charts?
No, I don't do my own charts. Just like a doctor shouldn't try to
Should
diagnose
exactly.
themselves.
Physician,
You
heal
know,
thyself, please.
yeah, it's you'll be more objective when
Yes.
you're not the looking at your own chart. So yes, I do use an astrologer or some astrologers to help me um,
Good.
when difficulties come. So
Was all of that your story? That was all in your charts too, huh? It was just all there, wasn't it?
that was all in my charts. Yeah, that was all there. And I mean, I can go through my chart during that period of time and show exactly where those things happened and what times they happened. And then, you know, astrology, there's times that are good and times that are bad. So when that negative time leaves, you also start to see many positive things start to happen. So yeah, I will, love to talk about all of that when the time is
When the time,
available.
perfect. You know, I have a question that many people might have as well. So when I know that you do your Instagram stuff and you say for the next 3 days, it's kind of like this and that. And I always watch them and I think they're
Right.
great. So if everybody's born in a different chart, with a different position and with different, planets influencing different people, how do you make those general things say like, okay, Jupiter's strong in the
Right.
next week. And if someone has yeah, you know what I mean? You know what I'm
Yeah.
trying to
Yes,
ask.
absolutely. So one thing I say at the beginning of most of those posts is look at your chart as a whole to see how it fully affects you. At least I used to say that. I don't know if I still do, but I may start again. But so you have to look at your whole chart to see how that fully affects you. Because what we're talking about is planetary transits. So you have your birth
Okay.
chart, which is a chart you're born on that doesn't change. But at the same time, the planets are constantly moving. So the sun moves, once a month. Jupiter moves once a year. Rahu and Ketu move, every 18 months. Saturn moves every 2.5 years. The moon moves every few days. So what you're looking at is the planetary transits. So those
Right.
planetary transits have some degree of effect on us and pull us in a certain direction, but it's going
On
to be
everybody. Yeah.
more or on everyone, but it's going to be more or less
Right. I get it.
depending on where it is in your chart. So say you have a very strong Jupiter in your chart, the Guru planet, the teacher, the
Yes.
planet of wisdom, and then you're going through a strong Jupiter transit. Well, that's going to become enhanced. So if I say, hey, these are great days, the moon is in Jupiter for your spiritual life, for being in nature, for all of this, well, then that is something they'll push you more toward that. It'll be easier for you to do that. If you go out in nature, the results you're going to feel from that are going to be deeper.
Right.
And if somebody has a weak Jupiter, and they'd say, I tell them the same thing, because in these, Instagram posts and all of that, you can only generalize. You're not specific to each
Sure.
person.
Of course.
For them, the effect may be less if Jupiter is weak to begin with, or the
Okay.
moon is in a weak position to begin with. So every person, I think getting your own personal astrological reading is absolutely the best way to get the full details of how it's going to affect you. These posts, we have to keep them to a minute and a half, because that's the attention span these days. And so it gives you some degree of information, but certainly to get the fully detailed information for each person, it's important to get your own chart individually looked at. But there are good guides to push you in the right direction. Now, there's one other question that people always ask that I want to answer is
Oh, yeah.
the
What's
question
that?
of twins or triplets. What about two people who are born, at the same time in the same place? How are they different? They're born seconds apart or minutes apart, but their lives end up completely different. How do you see that astrologically? That's a very common question. It's a very good question.
It's very
The
simple.
astrological
Imagine.
the astrological chart is not actually one chart. There's a main birth chart, it's called the D1, but then you have divisional charts, okay, which break down the chart into very subtle levels, subtle divisions of the chart. And those, if people are born even a few minutes apart, they're going to be completely different. And that's how you can tell that. Then, of course, there's the choices we make with the karma that we have also has an effect. And
Absolutely. And the conditionings that we have, the atmosphere, it's like,
of course,
you know,
of course,
We say
course.
in
Yeah,
the psychology world, you say it's biopsychosocial, and so
right.
that's so I think that you can include astrological in that.
Yes, all of that is included in how people, respond to things, and it's astrology, is very complex and very subtle science. So, I would encourage everybody out there, just look at your own astrological karmas, how they're affecting you. The only thing you need to know, okay, is if you're going to get an astrology reading, you need to know your date of birth, your place of birth, which most people know those things, and then your time if you have it. Now, if you don't, I can ask a series of questions and calculate people's time. So that's not a problem if you're not able to have your time. Most people know it. They find their birth certificate or they call the hospital and they're like, oh, okay, this is when you were born. But sometimes people don't know. But you need the date and you need the place. Okay, that's the main things. And in terms of
Right.
place, it can just be the city. It doesn't have to be, oh, it was, room 221 of, St. John's Hospital, something like that. Just the city is fine.
Yeah, fantastic.
And,
So what? Okay, go ahead. What were you going to say? Sorry.
oh, I said, and if you have that information, you can get a very kind of clear astrological picture of where someone is. And a lot of times they don't have it, and we're still able to calculate it. I did one recently, and this person was like, oh, my mom told me, I asked her this guy was probably 70, and he said, I asked my mom before she died, and she said, I was born at 3:30 in the afternoon. And he said, but I don't know if that's accurate or not. So I asked him a series of questions, and I said, no, actually you were born at it was like 8:27 p.m. in the evening. and
Wow.
and then he's like, wow, actually now I remember that when I was little, when my mom was still with it, she told me I was born at 8:30 in the evening. So you can get
Yeah,
very, close degree of accuracy in that. And that's important because that's going to help, your karmic map is based partly on that time. So,
absolutely. I think that that's something y- y- it always really amazed me. And like, well, first of all, we talked about doing my chart and then we talked about like, future and past and all that stuff. What makes an astrologer? Is it like a personal preference? Because some astrologers really like to do things in past lives. Some people do it, you know, just regular this life now, and others, that's a whole nother, I think that's a whole nother branch. How is that? How, like, what's the difference there? How does that go?
how everybody, just like there's specialties in medicine, someone's a cardiologist, someone's a surgeon, somebody's this, everybody has an area that they like to focus on. Some people can look very deeply into your past lives and see, what you were in your past life and all of that. I don't do that. What I focus more is on your current karmas, where you are, what the past of this life has shown. I look a little bit
Mm,
into the past life, to a degree of where you were and this type of thing, but that's definitely not my focus. Some people focus on that and use that more. Um, but everybody focuses or specializes in different things. And
wow.
this is where I like to keep my focus on. Okay, this is where you are right now. This is what you went through in this life. Because this is more tangible to people, right? They don't know,
Sure.
hey, you were Queen Elizabeth in your past life. You could, it's hard to, I can't interpret that. Somebody else may be able to do that, but you can then look at, okay, when you were 6, this happened. You were 10 years old, this happened. You can see these kind of things. And that kind of people like, oh yeah, that did happen at that age, and that gives them kind of a foundation on for this life. Okay, this person is hitting my timelines or when things happen correctly. And then they develop some faith that, okay, maybe this person can help me look at where the future is. That's why I like to concentrate more on that. One other important question is for everyone out there is how do you find a good astrologer? How do you know? There's a million people out there. How am I going to pick, why is Radhikesh Das the person I should go with? Why can't I go with, um,
XYZ. Yeah.
John Smith out there or somebody else? You find a good astrologer the same way you find a good doctor or a good counselor or a good person to, a good plumber or something like that. Talk to people, read their, in the modern day, read their Google reviews, Talk to other people that you know. See if you go to them, the results you get leave you feeling stronger and more empowered and powerful, or they leave you, either unsure or feeling depressed. It should leave you empowered. Those are the things that you look for. So just like you would look for anything else, use that as the basis of how you find an astrologer. And what do you go to an astrologer for? Go to the things that are important to you in your life. Okay. Birth chart reading, very important. Get understanding the karmas of your overall life once a year. Getting a yearly chart reading as your sun moves. Every year you have your sun returning. And then the planets are moving for that 1 year. So a yearly chart around your birthday is very important. And then, whenever there's very specific questions that come up, you can do something called a prashna chart. It means that, like, say someone is sitting at home and they're deciding, oh, how can I get over my addiction? And if they astrologically, at that exact moment in time, we can say they're sitting in, New York City on January 10th at 4:30 in the afternoon. And that's when they ask the question. And they write down that time. How can I overcome my addiction? We can create a chart for that exact moment, because what it means is that the universe is helping you ask that question. At the same time, the universe wants to help you solve this problem. So all the guidance of that specific moment will help you get an answer. And what very specifically, it can tell you, okay, do this, do these things, and this will help you best in overcoming the problem at this time in your life. So this is the different ways you can use astrology.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's I just wanted to put a little side note in that and say, especially with overcoming addictions, just because you have knowledge, just like a doctor, if we have knowledge doesn't mean we can heal ourselves. It means that we have the knowledge. And
Right.
most of us addicts need to go to 12-step programs as well. And some of us need to go to therapies, and some of us need to seek counseling and get professional help. I don't think Radhikesh is saying just have your charts done and then you can get over your addiction. I think
Absolutely
he's
not.
exactly
Absolutely
just, I
not.
don't want
Actually,
anyone to think, yeah.
no, no, absolutely not. Actually, for the majority of people that I deal with who are dealing with addiction, I would say probably every single one I deal with addiction, the first thing that their astrological chart shows is good association, cleaning up the environment around you. So being around the right people, cleaning up the environment around you, cleaning up the environment in your mind. So never have I had one chart in which it says you can do this on your own.
Yeah.
So absolutely. So
Exactly.
no, don't take that away from this. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It means you need a lot of people to help you on this journey. Okay.
Right.
Through addiction. It's not, yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying that. You're going to need to,
I know you're not,
usually when
but
the
I think
question
it
comes,
could
yeah,
be addicts are like, oh, he's just saying this, so I'm just going to take that away.
no,
That's the addict
yeah,
mind. Yeah.
yes, yeah. Please don't take that away. What it's going to show in majority of cases is that, hey, you need to be around the right people. You need the help of other people. You need, you know, divine strength to help you get through these things. This is not
Yeah.
something that you're going to get through alone. Yeah. So use
Good
that,
point.
use another tool. This is another tool that's here to help you in
Right. Sounds good.
understanding where you are. And then, it's a lot of times it's many different, even our association or the people that we're around, that's going to help us positively. It's many different ways, because some people need someone to, you know, hold them along and encourage them and praise
Yes.
them and help them in that direction. And sometimes people need someone to just say, you know what, just do it my way, and I'll get you through this. So everybody's a little different in that way. So understanding that in our own nature can be helpful. But no, this is not something we can do alone. This is something that requires multiple people and the right environment, the whole 12-step environment to help us get through these things.
What's very empowering for me to know, especially about my charts in my recovery specifically, And for many others that can be really helpful. Just like when we say in the 12-step program that we have a disease and we're powerless over our disease. When we have a certain astrological, when we're born at a certain time, and this is our karma, right? And this is what we get, there's a certain amount of
Right.
acceptance. And it's not about being ashamed. That how can I possibly be ashamed that Mars was in a certain position when I was born? Like, that would make no sense to be ashamed of that, because I'm just saying that I don't know anything about Mars. I'm just saying that. But just saying, like,
No, absolutely.
Mars and Saturn were over here when I was born. And so I'm so ashamed of that because it affects me in a way that I become weak, or I become, ill-willed, or whatever it is. So it's a
Right.
really good point to say, like, okay, this is how it is, and it will happen again. It like you said, the planets are constantly moving. It's a dynamic thing. And more importantly, I'm at a weak point. And it's like the point that you said before, what can I do about it? How can I, I know this about me now. I
Right.
accept this about me now. Now, what am I going to do about it? And I think it's another incredibly tangible thing to say, like, okay, this is not me. It's not the weakness of my brain. It's the way the planets were. It's the nature of my
Right.
disease. And of course, we're in Maya. Let's put that on top of it. And, at the end, when you have that, it's like, okay, Krishna will move mountains, but I got to bring a shovel, which means we have to do work too. But that's the way it is, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
Absolutely. We have to do our part on our journey.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Everybody does. Even, if you read the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna had to shoot those arrows in that battle. Okay. He didn't just sit back and allow, Krishna to do everything. He shot his arrows, he trained well, he did his best. And we leave the rest to divinity. But we have
Yes.
to do our part. Our effort is necessary, but it is not sufficient. But our effort is certainly necessary.
Yes.
And then, the divine Lord can give us the rest of that strength that we need. But we have to make our effort in all of these things. And absolutely, we have our karmas. And this is another really nice thing when you look at an astrological charts. There are times, even if we've been clean for years, that sometimes we feel a pull that, hey, maybe a little bit will be okay. Maybe we get pulled back in that direction even after years. And sometimes like, wait, why is this happening to me? And astrologically, you can see that this is, certain planetary transits are happening that are affecting me. Like for some people out there, Rahu just transited. And if Rahu is transiting, into an 8th house influence for a particular person, it can bring that association back. It can bring an inclination towards
Yeah.
a desire to go back on that same path. But once we recognize it, okay, this is Rahu, it's going to last this amount of time, it'll go away, then we become stronger in being able to not
Yes.
just overcome it, but recognize that, gosh, there's all these subtle energies out there that are affecting me that I don't even realize. I'm being pushed and pulled in all these directions, and I don't see these people who are doing this. And it allows us to see that.
It's so, I just find all kinds of paths, no matter what it is. It's a universal language, or somehow in every culture of every religion or spiritual path, or, subtle sciences, it's almost 100% the same. So it's like about 95% the same solutions offered in a different language with a different, it's so weird. It's like 2 + 2 and a million languages equals 4.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And so what you're saying right now is so program. It's so 12-step program. It's like, we have this disease of addiction, and this is why we practice our 12-step program, and Krishna consciousness as well. This is why we practice Krishna consciousness, because Maya is always out there, or the planetary, the planetary influences are always out there. They're changing, they're moving. And if we don't practice and we don't focus on our spiritual divine, right, or our program or whatever it is, and those energies come and we get weak, then we're not going to be
Absolutely.
prepared.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly like I always say, I'm in here recovering right now, right? I'm in good association with everybody. And right out the front door, my disease is doing push-ups, waiting for me to slip up.
Right.
And it's kind of like that. I mean,
That's
I can,
exactly right.
yeah. So it's the same language in a different, the different language in the
Yeah.
same, yeah. It's
Explaining the
always
same
amazing.
thing. Yeah. This
It's
is
so
this is really important, because we're basically, material world with Maya, especially with addictions, you're at war in many ways. War with the
Oh
mind,
my
war
God,
with
yeah.
our desires, war with Maya. So when we chant, when we meditate, when we follow the proper diet, we live a regulated life, all of these things are basically like our preparation, our workout to prepare for
Yes.
this battle. It gives us the strength to be able to go out there and face these things. If you want to run a marathon and you have been training for months, you're following the proper diet, you've practiced a few times, all of that. Well, it's going to be very easy for you to complete that race.
Right.
But if you show up to a marathon and you've
And
never
you've done
ran,
anything.
you have milkshakes for breakfast every morning, a lot of ice cream. Well, it's going to be really hard. You're not going to complete that marathon, It becomes much more challenging. So our spiritual life, whatever spiritual path we follow, if we follow that spiritual path, because the eternal truths of the universe are just that, they're eternal. Just like you said, that language, it's explained in different ways, but that eternal truth underlies every religious path. That
It's
eternal
beautiful.
truth has an energy, has a tangible energy that flows through the universe that's available for all of us to tap into. And
Yeah.
once we do that, then that allows us, whatever path we're following, to be strong in our journey of not just getting over our addictions. Certainly, that's an important part of it. But then deeper than that, getting more in tune with our relationship with the divine, understanding our own eternal nature to be eternally joyful and happy, and then developing a much more deeply personal relationship with the divine. So all of these things happen, and they all kind of happen together. And when we're watering the root, when we're watering our spiritual life deeply, then becoming less predisposed to addictions is just one of the wonderful side effects that happens when we're watering the root of the tree. All these beautiful flowers and fruits will come.
Wow, that's wonderful. How would you, let me ask another question? How would you,
Yes.
how would you like, um, someone with, there's all these diagnoses today, but let's just like really take an authentic, real ADHD person. And
Okay.
we're not talking about this like, oh, someone has a hard time paying attention. We're talking about like the serious ADHD.
Sure.
As far as their planetary stuff goes, is it like, because I feel that some people, and I'm actually talking, I'm included in that. It's like there's a propensity and this love of that eternal thing that you were talking about, this eternal love. This is this always wanting to go to that, to the spiritual path and stay on that spiritual path. But it's like battles are going on because your mind is everywhere. And it's like,
Right.
your
Right.
body's going here, your mind's going here, your emotions are over here, everything's all over the place. And then you turtle up,
Yeah.
So what would you suggest to people who have those kind of, they really want a spiritual path and they really want to keep doing things like that and they want to keep on their path, but it almost feels like from an astrological point of view, is it something that's really pre-written in their
Yes, it usually when you see ADHD and those type of things, you see Mercury, Rahu, and the Moon are the three planets that are strongly associated with ADHD. So you can see where those influences are, and and then yes, so that is very much written into people's charts.
is it in
And
mine?
astrologically,
Is it in mine?
To a degree, yes, it's there.
Okay.
Um, it's there. Um, but what you can do astrologically, there are remedies, astrological remedies that reduce these effects. Think of it as medicines. Okay.
Mm.
Like if somebody has high blood pressure, you'll give them medicine for their blood pressure. So astrologically, I use a lot of astrological gems. They have to be pure gems that can help overcome a lot of the negative energies that people have in their life. These can be very powerful. You can use yagyas, which are fire sacrifices, different mantras that, like the Hare Krishna mantra and things like that to overcome these things. But I use a lot of gemstones to help people in this way. And what it does, it just kind of reduces the karma that we're dealing with. Now, this doesn't mean you just go out to the jeweler and buy for Mercury, buy an emerald and things just calm down. It's not like that. The key is the gemstones have to be pure. Pure means astrological grade. They can't be heated or radiated or cultured or fracture filled or any of these things or lab made. And what they do, they carry a very subtle energy with them. So if we're dealing with Mercury, the energy of Mercury comes through that gemstone. And then it gets transferred into the body and has all kinds of very wonderful effects. I wear a gemstone for Saturn because my Saturn is so challenged, put it that way. And you notice the changes that happen. And it's not that you put it on and the next day your life is perfect. No, but you definitely
That would
over
be
a few
great.
months.
Sign me up.
That Yeah, that would be great. That would be wonderful. It's a medicine. It takes time. And what it does is that it kind of, you know, pulls you away from your worst inclinations in many ways.
Yeah.
So that can be very, very beneficial. And, when we're on the spiritual path, the mind, of course, whether we have ADHD or not, the mind will still try to pull us away from that spiritual path. And that is
Yeah.
a constant battle that requires the right association, both the people we're around and the things that we, put into our mind and that we put into our body. And all of that together is helpful. The one thing I tell everybody is don't take anxiety over your mind. Don't be like, oh my God, my mind is saying this. Do your best. Focus one step at a time. Take small steps. Okay, I can't chant for 20 minutes. Well, do it for 5. The
Yeah.
key is doing things consistently. And when the mind is going in 100 different directions, give yourself a very strict schedule. Okay, I'm going to get up at this time. I'm going to go to sleep at this time. Because it's only when you go to sleep early, you can get up early. And then I'm going to do 15 minutes of chanting and 15 minutes of yoga. And then I'm going to listen to this, kirtan or this, spiritual talk, lecture for 15 minutes. So make short intervals. The key
Right.
is not the amount that you do in the beginning. The key is consistency. Because what that consistency does, it starts the beginning of it begins discipline, but it also brings you a connection to the divine. And when that connection with divinity begins and you allow it to continue, it will slowly continue to grow and grow and grow. And everybody starts by chanting 1 round a day or meditating for 5 minutes a day or whatever they may start in that place. And if you
Right.
just are consistent with that, things will slowly grow over time.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you.
But that's the key. Everybody knows the Aesop's fable of the turtle or the tortoise and the hare. Go slow and steady in your spiritual life. Be consistent, be determined, but you don't need to get, to the finish line in 5 minutes. Everybody will get there. This is a guarantee. Everybody will
Yes.
get there. You just have to do your part as best you can, as consistently as you can. You don't, people like, oh, you have to chant 16 rounds a day. No, you don't. Chant 1, but just do it regularly. Chanting 1 round and doing it regularly is much better than chanting 16 rounds and then like, okay, that's enough for this month. I'll do more next month.
Yeah. Yeah.
1 round regularly every day, following the regulative principles as best you can. These are the foundations of consistency, and some degree of discipline is the foundation of how we grow in our spiritual life. And then, of course, being around devotees, going to a temple or a spiritual place on a regular basis. Doesn't have to be every day. It could be once a week. It could be, these type of things as much as possible. Consistency and slow growth are how we're going to get there.
Thank you. Actually, it's a really nice time to wrap up, but I wanted to ask you one more question, especially because I've been wanting to ask it the whole time. I didn't know if there was a time to get in there because we were really into a good conversation. What is, for people who don't know, because I think that's also a question I've been asked when I've told them that I had my charts done by you, they say, well, what's the difference between the Vedic astrology and just like regular, Greek? I guess it's the Greek, right?
Western astrology. Yeah. There are differences. I think if you go to a good astrologer who's well trained in any field of astrology, you will get the results that you're looking for. If the astrologer is themselves on a spiritual path and they have a deeper understanding of their own spiritual nature, it makes their ability to understand and interpret what they're being told, because in the end, the knowledge of an astrologer comes from a higher place. The things they tell you come from a higher place. So when their mind is kind of in let me use the word, a higher vibration or a higher consciousness, it becomes easier for them to share those things. But a good Western astrologer and a good Vedic astrologer, if they have that proper consciousness, can give you the good results. That's the most important thing. There are some differences, Vedic
like
astrology.
Scientifically, what would be the scientific difference?
Is the original astrology. It has to do with the position of the sun and how they determine the position of the sun. Vedic astrology doesn't look at any planets outside of Saturn, because when Brigu created astrology, Saturn was it. This is where, we look at Mercury and Venus and Mars and Jupiter and Saturn, and the moon and the sun, and Rahu and Ketu. Outside of Saturn, we don't find so much necessity to go beyond that. And it's not part of where Vedic astrology goes. So that's where I've been trained, and I've seen, very wonderful results coming from people who follow Vedic astrology. So I would never denigrate or say anything negative about Western astrology. It's just a different way of looking at things. But if you have somebody who's well trained and understands the subtleties of astrology, they can do very well in Western too. But the most important thing, the astrologer must come from a place of spiritual practice, someone who's deep in their own understanding of their own spiritual nature and is looking to help you in that way also, so you can understand your own spiritual path. So that's, and most people who do Vedic astrology, that won't say most, people who do Vedic astrology, especially if they're devotees, they have that deeper understanding and they're able to help you in that way.
Wow. Thank you, Radhikesh. I cannot wait. When we stop recording, we'll talk still.
Okay.
And I would really like to thank you again so much for coming and doing this interview. So please, once again, please let people know where they can find you. I recommend 100% Radhikesh is I'm super satisfied with everything. And it's been very, very helpful. There are certain things that I take with me almost daily. And one of those I had mentioned before that he said was watch for my association. And this is really actually, it's a very small sentence, and I've known this sentence forever. Like they say in the program, stick with the winners, and which means people who are practicing the program, people who are doing things that they should be doing and the things that I'm aspiring to do. But just somehow at that point in time when we did our charts and you'd said that, it was so relevant, especially because you had it all charted out and explained to me what's going on at the moment, and it just fit everything, that I realized how important that was. So even if everything you said was nonsense, which nothing was. But even if you said nothing, everything that you had said was nonsense, that one thing empowered me incredibly. So I thank you 100 million times for that. And I'm looking forward to constantly every year coming to you, and maybe even more, just, checking in with you, because it's very helpful. So please let people know where they can find you again.
Well, firstly, I'm very grateful that I was able to help you. We astrologers get their knowledge through the sun, through a deeper energy, and the fact that I was able to transmit that to you in the best way, I'm very grateful to be able to do that. Astrologers' empowerment comes from a deeper place, and as long as they recognize that, they'll continue to be able to do that. If people want to get a hold of me, Instagram, Radhikesh Das, TikTok, Radhikesh Das, radhikeshdas.com. So YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Google, you can find me. I'm everywhere.
Fantastic. So I'll put it also in the show notes so that you have it in writing.
Wonderful.
And again, thanks so much. And we'll do part 2 by hopefully by next week. So
Sounds great. Great pleasure speaking to all of your listeners, and I'm here to help in any way that I can for any of them.
Oh, thank you. Reach out to Radhikesh. It is so such a great experience. So I thank you once again, and remember, you heard it here. All right, Paul. This concludes another episode. Thanks for listening. In order for me to serve this community to the best of my ability, I welcome feedback. Please write your feedback at bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. That's bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. Also, please don't forget to follow and give us a 5-star rating. Share this with family and friends. If you'd like to join our Bhakti Recovery community, or just find out what we're all about, please visit our website at www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. That's www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. There are no dues or fees, and we meet daily. If you or someone you know is struggling with addictions and/or associated behaviors, you will find links in our show notes to various 12-step programs. Nobody seeking recovery need ever be alone again.
सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज.
The miseries of material existence and the most hopeless conditions of life is the best possible opportunity to turn to God.